What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Cowboy back at it again today with a new video, of course, like always. And today, we have something to talk about. There's possibly new things coming to Halo. And I finally figured out a way to do this yesterday because I was like, damn, how do I test this weapon and everything before it comes out so that I can do a video talking about it a little bit. And I'm going to talk about it in a social aspect and also a competitive aspect of how this weapon can work, how it can be balanced, and everything of that nature. So, we've seen this going around a little bit, this shotgun with the, a certain attachment to it. It's just a double barrel shotgun. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what it's like. So the weapon does have two firing modes. I do want to start with that. So the first one is this, where it just fires one shot at a time. Yes, up close it can one shot. At this distance and so forth, it's mostly just going to take them down to like a little bit of shield, or it's going to take them fully down to no shields. And then the second firing mode is this one, which is where it fires both shells at once, and you can get those one-shot potentials. And then also at range, it's mostly going to do stuff like that. It still does quite a bit of damage, which is pretty good. I'm also going to found the unlimited ammo, so I can really go over this. So this shotgun is kind of interesting. If anything, it's kind of more keen towards the original Halo shotgun, which could be a one-shot weapon, unlike the weapons like the Bulldog and the Heatwave, which we currently do have in the sandbox that aren't being used in competitive play. Remember, the GAs do exist there. They are not using the Heatwave or the Bulldog due to their not really being competitive friendly. Now, this thing, I'm kind of curious about it because it does act like a proper shotgun. You can't get those really long range hits. I don't even think it should do that much damage at like farther ranges. I think like right here, like understandable getting those one shots or taking them down to, most of their shields down and then possibly getting that second lead up shot with a double barrel. But I don't think you should be doing stuff like that. Even though 3-hit kills a little bit, kind of crazy to me, at least in my personal opinion. But I think it could be worked around. You could definitely still use this as a competitive thing. But then there's this part of the shotgun as well, which is the melee, which is a gravity hammer. And it also has an effect as well. So I'm going to use this bot as an example where you can actually slam it and knock them back. And it still does a moderate amount of damage. I mean, going from that range, it's a 4-hit kill, which isn't bad. And I actually could see this thing having some really cool play potential where you're playing a mode, for example, like Strongholds or King of the Hill. I could even say this like an oddball as well, possibly, with some interesting aspects. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in depth, but we're going to start with like Strongholds and King of the Hill, where you could have multiple enemies in an objective, and what you could realistically do is come in, take that, hit, and then just knock them out of the objective, take it over. Of course, you need a teammate to come through and pick up the damage and everything, especially if you're using something like the Bandit. I'm actually going to equip the Evo really quick, just so I can kind of show you, like, kind of how you could use it. It's pretty interesting. Of course, at a pro level, you're going to be, it's going to be a lot more risky. It's a lot more risk for reward, but I think it still does have a purpose. So you can do something like that and then have, pick up your teammates and everything. You're still basically going to take a full, bandit, shots and everything, depending on how much damage you're doing, how close you are to them and stuff of that nature. And I think it could be really good for modes like Strongholds and such, where you could really use this to knock people out of objectives and everything. I think it could actually significantly help how the game flows and could actually really cause some interesting upsets. But the gravity hammer thing does need to have a little bit of talk. So I will say there is a little bit of a balancing aspect to this. So if you can't tell, there's not really a lunge and it's missable. Like you can miss the lunge on it. You kind of how I have figured out how to use it most effectively is to, I'm playing on keyboard and mouse, of course. I don't play on controller. But the best way to do it is to run up to them, go through the animation, but right before it hits, swing back, like actually pull your character back so you make sure you're still seeing them on screen. Because if they get past you before you do that slam, they're not getting damage, which is kind of an interesting balancing aspect. I do think also the gravity hammer should act like a normal gravity hammer. It should have a charge. I think it should be maybe, for social play, of course, keep it at 100. It's social play. It doesn't really matter. Maybe at competitive, keep it at like 50 or shit, even like 40, 30, or 20. So it can't be overused. I think it definitely also needs to be a higher tier power weapon on the range of things like the rockets and the skewer. I think it definitely does need to be up there. Now, does that mean we're going to see this in competitive and being used? I would say more than likely not, but I kind of just want to talk about how we could see this work in competitive. I do think also in competitive with this thing, it should have maybe 6 shots. I would say even closer to 4 total because this thing deals a load of damage. And I would say most people are probably going to use it as like the single shot where you can really get damage and then go for those one-shot cleanups. I think that would be really effective with this thing. Get them down to like that and then lead them out with that one-shot cleanup right there. I think would really help, but yet again, there could definitely be some balancing tweaks with this as well. And like I said, it does need to be treated like a very high-tier power weapon. This thing is cool, though. I think it's actually a very interesting weapon to have in Halo Infinite, and I do actually hope this thing comes out because I want more banished weapons. You know, the UNSC weapons are cool and all. You know, we've seen the Bandit, or basically the DMR, the Bandit Eva, which I can't really count as a full weapon because it's literally just a variant of the Bandit DMR. But I wouldn't mind seeing more banished weapons since they are the main fighting force in the game, and I don't think we're going to things like Covenant weapons necessarily, like the Covenant Carbine, which, you know, I wouldn't be mad about by any means saying I love the Covenant Carbine. It's one of my favorite weapons in Halo. My biggest one that I've been saying I want to see come back is the Needle Rifle. I think the Needle Rifle added a interesting gameplay mechanic with Halo Reach, and we've never seen it again. So I would like to see it again at some point. I think it'd be really cool. Have, you know, a long-range needler that is a little bit more powerful, a little bit harder to use. It doesn't necessarily have it doesn't have the tracking element of a normal needler. It was literally a precision rifle that had the same effect as a needler, and I think it was very interesting to see in that game. I would definitely like to see it come back if we ever seen some Covenant weapons return, as well as, you know, my goat, the beam rifle. I love that fucking thing with all my heart. It's just a really fun weapon, but this thing is kind of interesting. It adds, you know, more to the Banished, because that's like one thing I feel like the Banished don't really have is enough weapons in their arsenal. I mean, they have things like the Disruptor, the Shock Rifle, the Ravager, the Mangler, Skewer, and that's really it. Looking here at all the weapons, we don't have a lot of, you know, we have like some Covenant ones. We have the Pulse Carbine, Stalker, Needler, and the Plasma, which kind of have the more Covenant style, but I'm talking about like straight things that look like they would be used by the Banished with like the blades and everything, and kind of how this one has like the gravity hammer attached to it. I think it should be a really a cool weapon and an interesting one to see as well. I don't think it should go into competitive instantly, possibly, if it ever does come out. I do think it should stay in social play, maybe give it a little bit of a trial, or who knows, maybe add like a ranked mode that has, you know, some maps with it on there to see how it flows, see what people think about it, and, you know, see how they can, you know, nerf and buff it for ranked per se. I know it's been said a lot of times, and I do agree with it personally on like at least a player level. There should be two different sandboxes that are managed in two different ways, one for ranked and one for social play, because one, it kind of adds a weird dichotomy to the player base as a whole. It's something that does bother me a lot of times, is I see a lot of, you know, casual players complaining about how the sandbox is, because, well, I'm not a professional player. Why would I want to, you know, use these things that pros are using? Like, why does that matter to me? And then, of course, there's the pro players who are like, hey, we don't want these weapons to feel like casual weapons. Like, we want them to feel like they belong with us in our league and what we like about Halo. And I think that would be a really good way to, you know, kind of minimize it and go around it. And then, of course, talking from my end of things here, I do have to say, this weapon has cool trick shot potentials with, like, the slam and then go back through and do, like, the little spins and everything. We're trying to hit a shot really quick if we can with it. Oh, well, we're not gonna be able to. Also, the reload just looks really fucking cool, so I would, you know, I think if it comes in, you guys are gonna see some cool trick shots with it, at least from me and anybody else that goes for shots and actually, you know, kind of makes that a bit of their content. But there's some cool stuff you can do with this thing, and I think it could be very interesting. Like I said, I do want to see it more in objective play, and also with Oddball, because I did forget to mention it. I think there's a really cool thing with Oddball in this weapon. So if y'all don't know, a big thing you can do with like the gravity hammer and such, and I think could work with this, is if you have a teammate who's getting ready to be attacked by an enemy, I think you could use the hammer to, like, knock them out of the way, like, knock them back far enough to where you can take that fight and actually be able to protect them and keep them off of the Oddball. I think it adds for a lot of cool, interesting play styles with these weapons. I think that's one thing I always look for in Halo is, like, well, what can you use this for that's more than just using it as, you know, a normal weapon? What can you do with it? You know, with the grav hammer, one thing, you know, if I'm playing socials with a friend, for example, and we're just, like, trying to win some games here and there, one thing that we like to do is, like, if there's a gravity hammer, pick it up, just use it to launch your fucking teammates. It works every single time, and it's awesome. But I think this weapon does have some definite usefulness to it that is very interesting in its own right. I like this weapon a lot. I think it's really, really cool. And I love the design of it. This looks super cool. Like I said, it's not textured or anything. It doesn't have a name yet, but the sounds are there and everything. It still functions fully. But I really want to see this thing in Halo. I think it'd be really sick to see in Infinite. And I do hope with the Avenger coming out and kind of how happy people have been with it coming out, despite people, you know, liking it or not, being like, well, it's just a subset of the MA40 and stuff like that. I think it's a cool weapon to have, and I think it does give the opportunity for Halo Studios to actually add some more weapons. I know there's been talks about the Field Rod Cannon coming in, which I would love to see. I love using the Field Rod Cannon in Halo, especially in social games. Personally, I prefer it over the Rocket Launcher. I think it adds a lot more diversity to it. It adds a lot of different playability because you could bounce the fuel rods off of things before they blow up. You have they didn't deal nearly as much damage as a rocket. It was a 2-hit kill instead of one. It added a lot of cool play styles, and I really like to see it in this game. I think it would work very well, especially with some of the maps, especially things like BTB with how big it is. I would personally just love to see it. But I wouldn't mind seeing this one as well. Like I said, would like to see it in social and competitive. See how it is handled. See what changes come with it and everything. I don't know. There's some things that they could definitely work with to make this gun a viable option in competitive. Like I said, my biggest one: make this thing up onto the level of like a rocket or a skewer. Don't let this thing be a replacement for the fucking bulldog. That just sounds horrible. And that would get GA'd instantly, and you'd just see nobody using it. I think it being a high tier power weapon would really, really help subsidize it and actually give it its own little personality. And then on top of that, we're going to go back to the main menu, so I will see you all there, because we have a new playlist to talk about. Alrighty, and let's talk about this new mode. So we have the Workshop 1v1 Showdown mode, which I am actually a really big fan of. I actually got like 2 games in or so earlier. Been having some fun with it. I probably won't have time in this video to play through a full game, so I'm not going to hop into it, but I do want to talk about this a little bit, because I've actually been really excited for this mode, because it's very interesting. So the way this mode, it kind of reminds me of, I forget what it's called. It was in, H5, I think it was like Elimination or some shit like that, where it was the unique maps where you spawned in with a single weapon, you'd fight for power on the map. And that one was, I think, done in 2v2, 3v3, and 4v4, if I'm not mistaken. There maybe was a 1v1, I just don't remember. Sorry to people who love H5. I didn't get to spend as much time with that game as a lot of other players. There's some things I forget about it. I do love the game. It's one of my favorite eras of competitive Halo. I remember watching it a lot. I just didn't have a lot of time to play it due to some personal things that was happening in my life at the time, but I tried to keep up as much as I could. I don't remember all the modes, damn it. But this mode is really, really cool. There's some uniqueness to it. It's round-based. So the way it works is you have a 500-point cap limit. You can get points by capturing an objective on the map, which does take some time and is a bit harder to do, or you get 100 points by killing the enemy on the other side, and then the round resets, you go again. And it's very interesting. So it's 3 rounds of 500, and it's very cool. Every single round you start with a different weapon, a possible different power-up, and a different set of grenades, and it's also on a different version of a map that's already existing within Halo Infinite. And it's very, very cool. I'm a big fan of it. It's very interesting. Adds for a lot of different gameplay, and I am a huge fan of this mode. I hope we do see a ranked version of it at some point. I think it'd just be really fun for the people who play solos, which is one thing that I do quite a bit. I don't have a lot of friends that play Halo all the time like I do, so it'd be nice to have a ranked mode where I can actually go through and just have some fun, because I don't get to have that in Arena, because I really get tired of trying to carry teams all the time. It's very annoying, and then it just kind of like tanks my stats, because I'm trying to do so much, and I'm like faulting in other areas, which some things I just don't think some people get, which is totally understandable. Some people aren't, playing that seriously. It's totally fine. It just makes it hard as a solo player who's actually, who tries to be better at the game. But this mode is very, very cool. I recommend everybody go check it out if you like a 1v1 style. Only thing I do request in it, I wouldn't mind it personally. I know some people are probably going to get mad at me at this because they're tired of remakes and they're tired of all of that, which I totally understand. But I actually wouldn't mind like a set to be on like a style of like this map, but Guardian with snipers. Just give us a little throwback. Why not? Like, I think it would just be really fun. If y'all were back in the H3 days, 1v1s on Guardian were huge. At least it was for like me and all my friends and people that I ran into. It's always one. If you're mad at each other, 1v1 on Guardian, snipers only. That's how you're gonna settle that beef. But I would like to see that in here. I would like to see a sniper starts as well. I think it would just be really fun. The ones that I've seen so far have been, I know the AR is in there, the Bandit and Bandit Evo, the Shoddy, so the Bulldog, and the BR and Commando, which is totally fine. It's fun. It's very interesting, but I do recommend you all play this mode and actually give some feedback on it. I would love to hear it down below. I just think it'd be really good to hear about it, see what everybody's feeling on it. Personally, I really, really like this mode. It's very, very enjoyable. I will say, for the XP grinders, that is where it's an issue for me as well. You don't get a lot of XP from it, just your typical amount, 100 per kill, and I think 200 if you cap the objective, or 250. So you're not getting too much XP out of it, but still, it's a very fun mode. It's very quick too, surprisingly. You can drop quite a few kills in there as well, so it kind of does make up there. But it's very fun. I do recommend that everybody go check it out, because I'm personally enjoying it, so I don't see why you all wouldn't either. But that's where I'm going to end it for today, guys. It's been your boy Coreboy. I hope you all have a great day. Stop by the stream tonight if you would like to, and I will catch you later.